Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're decoding one of the most fascinating, chaotic, and frankly, high-stakes financial ecosystems on the planet. We're talking about the wild economics of the football transfer market. Right off the bat, let me throw a number at you. $9.76 billion. That's billion with a B. That is the record-breaking global transfer spend from just the mid-2025 window alone, a massive 50% jump from the previous year. But hidden within all those billions is a very specific, almost magical phenomenon. To get a grip on this, let's look at a real story. Take Enzo Fernandez. Back in the summer of 2022, Benfica scooped him up for a little over 12 million euros. Pretty standard, right? But then, the Winter World Cup happened. Fernandez goes out, plays absolutely brilliantly, Argentina lifts the trophy, and literally just 6 months later, he's sold to Chelsea for 121 million euros. A British transfer record. Which brings us to a massive question, one that every single football fan and club owner really has to ask. How on earth do exactly 32 days of a summer tournament completely shatter the established laws of economics? Like, how does a player's value multiply by 10 in less than half a year? Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1. The gravity of transfers and the science of normal markets. So in a normal day-to-day environment, the transfer market actually follows a really strict baseline rule. It's called the gravity model of trade. Now, according to some extensive research out of the University of Kent, club size, meaning, their overall wealth and total wage bill, acts like a gravitational pull that attracts transfers. But on the flip side, geographic distance between clubs as well as intense rivalries, they actually repel them. It's a surprisingly rational, totally risk-averse system. And this brilliantly illustrates that point. Normally, the rules are rigid. A mere 1% increase in geographic distance between two trading clubs actually drops the transfer fee by over 34,000 euros. Distance is a massive financial deterrent, mainly because clubs heavily prioritize players who can adjust quickly to their new surroundings. Part 2. Shattering the model, or as I like to call it, the ultimate market disruptor. Because when the World Cup kicks off, all that predictable data we just talked about goes right out the window. See, a normal market relies on gradual scouting and regional logic. But the World Cup market, it is emotionally heightened, compressed into just a few frantic weeks, and driven by massive global bidding wars. This is exactly why clubs send their absolute best scouts to the tournament rather than just watching highlights. A few weeks on this stage can literally change a player's entire trajectory. Let's move to and see how this builds through this visual flowchart, because this artificial inflation happens in 4 highly predictable steps. Step 1, a player enters the tournament at their baseline value. Step 2, they deliver an elite, jaw-dropping performance on the global stage. Step 3, and this is the turning point, market leverage firmly shifts from the buyer to a very, very stubborn seller. And finally, step 4, massive price inflation and bidding wars officially commence. Actually, one analyst perfectly captured the mood of these selling clubs. They said, a club rejecting 100 million euros now is planning to reject 135 million in August. I mean, wow. That quote really emphasizes the incredible, almost unfair leverage a World Cup hands to teams whose assets perform well. Suddenly, the buying club finds themselves backed into a very expensive corner. Moving on to part 3, record-breaking markets and the cost of a golden boot. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is when we adjust the historical data for 2026 inflation, we see a persistent, astronomical premium paid for World Cup hype across all eras. Look at Ronaldo's famous 2002 move. That would be almost 78 million euros today. Zinedine Zidane sits at 130 million. James Rodriguez would cost 107 million today. And our guy Enzo Fernandez sits right near the top at 133 million in modern money. The underlying formula here has always been exactly the same. And the crazy thing is, we're actively seeing this play out in the 2026 World Cup right now. Look at Crescencio Somerville for the Netherlands. His value spiked by £10 million to a 40 million valuation right after the group stages. It perfectly echoes Morocco's Azzedine Ounahi, who saw a mind-blowing 300% value increase in just 3 weeks back in 2022. But, and this is a big but, there's a totally overlooked downside here: the risk of underperformance. If a player valued at, say, 150 million totally underperforms in the knockouts, that leverage they expected to take into contract negotiations, it can silently dissolve before they even fly home. Part 4 is the premium worth it, the ROI reality check. So, the crucial point is, are these emotionally charged massive investments actually delivering value for money on the pitch? Well, transfer room data reveals a massive disconnect. As we can see, clubs pay a staggering 54% price premium for players purchased immediately following an international tournament, but they only see a 20% increase in actual minutes played. To put that into perspective, these signings aren't necessarily bad players. They do get on the pitch 20% more, but because they cost 54% more upfront, the investment is incredibly risky. The massive price hike simply outpaces their actual productivity on the grass. And honestly, the long-term financial damage is even more severe. Breaking it down, clubs don't just overpay upfront. They're paying roughly a 30% premium per minute played, and for strikers, it's a massive 50% premium per goal. But here's the real kicker. While clubs normally enjoy a positive 34% profit margin when reselling a player, post-tournament signings flip to a negative 6% resale margin. Basically, you buy at peak hype, and you actually lose money on the back end. Which brings us to our final provocative thought. As we watch the rational logic of the gravity model get completely crushed by the sheer emotion of the tournament, we really have to ask ourselves, when billions are spent in the chaotic aftermath of a World Cup, are these clubs truly buying elite long-term talent, or are they just buying the hype? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer. Keep questioning the data, and we'll catch you next time.